Yeah, well, it's an improvisational process. So we create everything through improvisation, and then we videotape all of the improvisations and relearn them. And all of those elements are kind of at play together. So we'll have some rehearsals where we're playing with projections, some rehearsals where we're doing movement, or even within a rehearsal we'll go from one to another. Some rehearsals David would come in and do therapy sessions with us, and we'd do little group therapy sessions, and we'd record them, and those actually became some of the videos and some of the scenes and some of the dances. So yeah, they all kind of play and inform each other, and sort of it's a process of whittling down and things that kind of end up gravitating together. And Todd and Laura, our collaborators on the side here, the technical side, they did a lot of work on the sound design side and finding music for us that fit the stuff that we were doing and putting sound design to elements and things. So I don't know, anyone else want to say anything about the process?
Well, it's pretty much, we just go in every day, and Aaron has somewhat of a plan, but we just follow things as they happen. Like a month ago, we were like, wait, we don't have a show. Like, literally. And in terms of like what we were sharing and doing, you never know what's going to end up in it. We just kind of follow any leads. Like one day, Aaron took us, oh, I wasn't actually there, but he took them to Savers, got a bunch of costume elements, brought them in, and that's how the whole mask stuff started. He was reading a book, Body Keeps the Score, by Bessel van der Kolk, and so the IFS, that's where that came from. So then that, and then these little things start, and then we just follow them, and then we have a show.
How did you decide about using this group, these performers?
They were the ones who stuck it out.
So there were people who fell along the way.
Yeah, we had some other people involved, and you know, it was a tough process. It was not an easy process to go through, and some people it wasn't for them at this time, and even some of these people felt that at different times. And then
last week.
But you know, we have a school at Everett, and artists come up through our school, and they become professionals there and teach. And so that's kind of the pool of people who kind of evolve into our company members. And you know, some of these people are the latest crop of those young people who come through the school.
All the artists here, other than Tiana, she's the newest, all of us have been running a program in Providence Public Schools, middle schools, with kids that are experiencing PTSD, and we're using a cognitive model, and we're bringing arts into it. So it's an arts adaptation. So that was one of the things that led us here to the topic of trauma.
It kind of piggybacking a little bit on the dropping out of some people throughout the whole trajectory. I think I want to understand from the performance perspective how this was a really vulnerable piece, at least that's for me, I think. How difficult was it for you all to really kind of perform through some of these pieces?
The process was really difficult. Like, I felt like there was multiple times throughout it where I felt like I was at my breaking point, and I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is too much for me. Especially, too, because the stuff that I had been through and things like that, like, I had never spoken about it to my mom or really to anybody. So when I started doing the show, then it became something where I had to have a conversation at home of like, okay, I just need to brief you real quick because this is what's going to be in the show, and I know you don't know this, but now I have to tell you. So it was really hard.
Anybody else have any thoughts about that?
It makes you like think about a lot of things that are going on like right now too, like you know how you're handling situations at the moment, and it kind of actually helped me like over the summer, especially like go into like when I would think about stuff, like I would like sit down and like that the IFS model, like you can sit down and you can kind of do it with yourself. Like you always talk to yourself, but if you know specifically what's going on now, you can go pinpoint that one thing. So I feel like I was talking to that, like, you know, talking to myself a lot more this summer, and I was asking myself a lot of questions I wouldn't have asked before. And it definitely is hard to do that because sometimes, you know, you just got into an argument with your anger, and then you come into rehearsal and they're like, all right, I want you to fall, and you're like, nah, I'm not trying to do that right now. So, you know.
And maybe this would be a good time to kind of talk a little bit about the IFS model, because, you know, in every process we go through when we make a piece, there's at a point when you're kind of in the woods and you don't know what you're doing, and then at a certain point you find what I call the key to the piece, and it's the thing that helps you sort of unlock where you're really trying to go, and then a lot of things become a lot clearer, and things get accelerated, and you really start kind of building some momentum. And for this piece, the key to the piece was the IFS model of therapy. And can you just kind of give a summary of that for people who may not know what it is?
IFS is developed by Richard Swartz, and he was trained as a family therapist, a PhD, and in my opinion, and I was emailing him, but I'm not speaking for him, I'm giving you my experience. His genius is that he took a family systems perspective. So if you'd be sitting with a family as a therapist, you'd have, say, 10 people, and you have 10 very distinct, oftentimes personalities, connections, lack of connections, different patterns, and he took that and then he applied it to the individual. And instead of looking at a person as being one person, that's it, he thought of the idea that we're parts, or we have parts. So what he identified is, and you could see it in the piece, is that we have exiles, managers, and firefighters. So exiles carry the burdens, of which you saw many of them and how heavy they can be, not available a lot of times to really see what's there. The manager's job, and this is kind of a brief overview, the manager's job is to keep the system level, to keep the system going. Like a manager in a store or corporation, you have to keep it going no matter what. It's a very, very busy job. It's often exhausting. And the firefighters are what comes in, and it's not a firefighter necessarily a helpful one, although it has a good intent. When the firefighter comes, it's like the civil rights hose, where it just blasts people into oblivion. After it settles, the exiles go back, because the exiles are trying to get out, like in any oppressed culture or people or internal family. And then the managers go back to managing, and then the system keeps going. What Richard also developed is this idea of self, which in all of that, there's this center of who we are. He defines it by the 8 C's. I give the 8 C's? You know them better than I do.
Some of them: compassion, creativity, connectedness.
Clarity,
Confident, is that what?
confidence.
Confidence, yeah.
Confidence is one of them, right?
Connections.
Yeah, connection, yeah, and compassion. So what you saw in these pieces is that you saw how difficult it is sometimes to be compassionate towards a part of us, and what's it like when you can extend some compassion to it and have a relationship. So this model has been literally sweeping the world, and I'm not over-exaggerating. People from Russia, China, Dick is in Italy right now. It's just this really, really powerful thing that's gathered this momentum. And I jumped on the train about 2 years ago. And I'm a teaching program assistant now. I just signed up. I'm 2 years into it. So I hope that gives like a brief overview. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them after.
And I just want to say, one of the really cool things about it is it's non-pathologizing, right?
Yes.
So it's not like saying you have this and you should do this. It really allows you to be in the driver's seat in the therapy sessions. And also, like Joseph was saying, once you learn the model and get comfortable with it, you can practice this at home and do it on a day-to-day basis, which is really cool.
So quick questions. The first one is to you. You said you're a teaching partner. I'm wondering where. That's my first question. My second question is to the actors. I was wondering as I was watching the pieces, what is real and what is not, and what was borrowed stories, and where did you get your inspiration from? So if you could tell us your answer, that's great.
Yeah, there's 3 different levels of IFS training, and level 1 is the beginning piece of it. It's either over a year's period of time, and it's about every other month, and it's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, morning, noon, and night, and people sign up, and you don't have to be a therapist. This is one of the psychotherapy use models, but you don't have to be a psychotherapist to do it. So we see people from a lot of different walks of life that really make it rich. So it's a year-long training, or sometimes you can do it like 6-day chunk and a 6-day chunk. But I finished mine, my initial training October of last year. I signed up to be a program assistant, which is you help teach, you're part of the team, and we just finished that last week. And I just, maybe crazy, but I just signed up for another one, and I'm in it for another year, and teaching people how to do it as well, and supporting the master trainers.
And to answer your other question, none of the stories are borrowed. All of the stories are authentic and came from each of us, so each person portrayed their own story.
Which is crazy. I mean, it blows me away that can we just give it up? Can we just go? The courage that it takes to do this, and then to put it out there, and then to play it forward, it just blows me away. I'm in just awe of this process, these performers, what they bring to it, what Joseph said, just crazy.
You have one over there?
Yeah, so there were segments of the piece where there was sort of a monologue about the experience of PTSD. I can't feel my body, and other things like that. So I thought that was like really awesome, because like just really put it out there in a very concise way. And I was just wondering where those words came from.
Well, in the first dance, we call that the trauma dance. Those words came from The Body Keeps the Score.
Okay.
Kind of condensed, very condensed, and reworked a little bit to be a little bit more accessible.
Right.
Because in the book, the phrases sometimes don't fall off the tongue too easily and don't fall into the air that easily from a
Slightly
stage.
academic.
Yeah, for a stage kind of experience, it had to be adapted a little bit.
Right.
And then we call the numbing dance. Those are basically symptoms of numbing, and that's something that Laisha talked about, and so we just kind of like sort of revolved it around her, and just kind of, again, we adapted a little bit, but basically it's a list of what the symptoms when you experience numbing are.
Yeah, I mean, as a trauma therapist, I'm like, oh, that's dissociation, that's depersonalization. Oh, they're in another state, that's the biphasic state of trauma. Like that stuff, it's all of these pieces are all part of trauma work. Very exciting to watch.
I just want to congratulate you guys, because this really works. And I think we take the history of dance theater back to Pina, that whole trajectory of episodic and abstracted stuff, right? And then we look at all of the work that's been made out of our personal feeling, therapeutic experience. And a lot of it's terrible, right? And it may be really important for us as artists, but a lot of the work doesn't really work. Or is really abstract and is not accessible, right? And I feel like the thing that you guys have created makes the therapeutic work you're doing connect because of the episodic nature of dance theater. And so in terms of colliding those two worlds and those different sets of tools and making something that's art, which is, therefore transcending those parts. Bravo. And that was not my expectation. So really well done.
Thank you.
I'm still processing, but I think a beautiful piece. And I work in mental health, I work in Butler Health impacted you as an artist and in your, or maybe going forward, how, what transformation or what, what in ways that it's impacted you as an artist and in your day-to-day life, because what I think the power of the arts are.
Someone want to tell a little bit more about the work in the schools?
Sure. The program is called CBITS, Cognitive Behavioral Intervention for Trauma in Schools. It's a model that's been around for a while, and it's all over the country, and what we're doing is adapting it with arts. So we have 10-week sessions with groups of 10 to 12 middle school students. We work alongside clinicians, 2 artists, 1 clinician, and we have had amazing results with kids. Obviously, deep trauma that the kids face, and sometimes it's really hard to leave a group after 10 weeks because you feel like you're just getting the connection with them. So, if anything, we want to continue this work, and I'm really passionate about it. I'm interested in getting IFS trained, and at Everett, we just want to continue going deeper and deeper into this work.
We do we call it the diorama, how Justine tells her story. Those figures, that started in the CBITS program. We have clay and figures, and kids make a scene and then tell their story. So it's getting kids comfortable to tell their stories. We do on your feet improv games where they're learning how to think about their thinking. We talk about emotions, all kinds of fun stuff.
And the arts has really made it more engaging for the kids. It's a lot to get 10 kids in the middle of a school day and say, come talk about your trauma, in middle school. But they really do it, you know what I mean? The amazing thing is, with the arts added in, it opens them up, and they do it. And they can relate to these guys, and it works.
We share our own personal trauma stories with the kids, which helps them open up. And as soon as, like Grace was saying, as soon as we pull out those little figures, like that's one of the sessions where you get the real trauma starts to come out from the kids. And the second part of that question was how has this process been for us? How has it impacted us?
Yeah, it might inform your work as an artist going forward.
Not only as an artist, but I feel just like as a human being, this piece has been so healing for me, and just processing my trauma. And I am doing IFS therapy now, which to me is so different than regular therapy, because you really are in control and you're not feeling like someone's telling you what's wrong with you. Like, you're talking to the parts inside of you, and it's just a very healing experience.
It also has been very healing for me and eye-opening, and it's something that I just want to go around and share with all my family and my friends, and just be like, hey, I learned about this, you should try it and see how it works for you. So it's really cool.
Are we going in a line? Oh, okay. Well, once we started this process and started working with David, I actually asked Justine for help and started seeing an IFS therapist on my own as well. And same thing kind of as what Justine was saying, like, it's way more effective for me than going to the traditional form of therapy, which is what I was doing before. And it's just a lot easier. Like, the traditional therapy process, you sit in the chair, you have to basically go through an interview for like 3 or 4 weeks for them to get to know you, understand what the trauma is, and then figure out, how to go about dealing with it. Versus when you're doing the IFS, it's kind of like you just get right to it, and they get to know you as we're doing the therapy, and it just makes it a lot easier for you.
For me, I feel like the process has helped me. Like I said, I've been able to pinpoint certain things I wouldn't have thought about before, and it's helped me kind of feel like I'm more equipped to for my plans that I had before, as far as moving forward and planning for the future. Because sometimes, obviously, overthinking things can put you in a place where you're really stuck. So I feel like I've gotten I made good progress with that. And as far as my anger, I haven't been angry in a while, and it was actually hard to do that, be angry like that. But Aaron was, he had this idea of PEM, and he was like, I want you to just try your hardest to be angry. And I think PEM is hilarious. I'm not gonna get into that, but I don't feel as angry anymore, for sure. to be honest, like I'm kind of more sarcastic now instead of being angry. Like when someone's mad, like I'm like, oh, you're mad. So
No, it's not funny when you're the person he's talking to.
and then the other thing is like, I said this yesterday, but I'm gonna say it again. Like, IFS doesn't just work for me. Like, you can actually say it to other people. So if Tiana, like she said, if she's being angry or ignorant, I'll ask her ignorant or angry part to step back.
I'll just quick answer too. I absolutely learned a lot about myself. I think I had parts that I didn't know existed, and then it's insane. I mean, I was doing a session with David, and you know, he's asking questions, and I asked my part a question, and so my sad part, he asked me to ask. I'm forgetting now, but
Does it get tired?
no,
If he knows- if she knows who you are.
does she know who you are? And I, first myself, I was like, oh yeah, she knows who I am. But I'm seeing, like in my mind, I'm seeing this part laying there, and she's looking at me, and she's like, I don't know who you are. And it's like, holy fucking shit. There's this little part of me that was like cut off at this age, and she doesn't know who I am. She doesn't recognize me. And he was like, you know, well, you know, tell her who you are. And I was like, hey, I'm you. Like, this is how old we are now. And then finally she like relaxed and trusted me enough to be there with her, and I spent time there with her, and it was, I mean, you don't even realize, and then you're doing it, and you're like, I don't know, I'm 100% changed.
One more for the road. Yep, sorry.
What were you trying to communicate? What were you hoping to communicate? Like, what messages to us with the performance, through the performance?
Well, you know, I mean, I think it's open-ended in some ways, but I think we were in the process hoping to, first of all, do no harm to the people who were participating. I mean, that was really important, and that's why we brought David in to consult with us, because, you know, we weren't experts, and, you know, we have dealt with kids' traumas over the years, for years, but at the same time, this was a different level of going into it, you know what I mean, and a process around it. So we didn't want to do any harm, and ideally, we wanted it to be healing for the people who were participating, and then ideally healing for the audience, people who may have experienced it, who, you know, might get something out of it, might see themselves as not alone. You know, yesterday we had someone say that they could see themselves as not alone. And then for others, you know, just to know it's all around you, you know what I mean? We're swimming in a sea of trauma. And whether people have kind of told you about it or not, a lot of them have it, you know what I mean? And to just be aware of that, and just to be maybe a little gentle and kind, and I don't know, that's my idea. Other people may have different ideas.
And to show some beauty too, and to me it's like why it's worth it, you know, because so many people do experience trauma, but it's moments every day where you see beauty, human connection, love, imagination, everything that makes everything that we go through as an individual, as a community, as a world. It's so much, but there are things that make it worth it.
And everything can be so surface sometimes, and like to me it was beautiful. Like, we've all known each other for a long time, but we got to know things about each other that we had no idea before. Like, that's my sister. I didn't know she had a self-hate part like that, and watching that was like traumatizing to me, because I want to run out and hug her and tell her it's okay. But the whole point of IFS is like, you have to feel okay. Everybody can tell you, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, you should feel okay. No, it's about like you inside of you. So it's made me like talk to people in my family and my wife and get to know things about them that I never knew before, because I'm like, damn, I've been with my wife for 8 years and I want to know more about her childhood and what she went through and stuff like that. So to me, that was like the best part of it for me.
You know, I just want to say, because I watched the process some, and when you think about trauma in Greek, you can think about drama, and that the whole show might be about sad stories that are going to, you know, just break your heart. But what I found about the piece is it shows the interior of the process. You know know what I mean? And it sort of brings that out, so we all are exposed to what are these people actually experiencing. And the stories, it's important that the stories are there, but the stories aren't the key. The key is, what are people experiencing? And we get a glimpse of those experiences. To me, that's what they did.
Well, thanks everybody for coming.
Can I just add one thing
Yeah.
before we finish? I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. The gentleman there that said about these kind of things colliding, like therapy or art, that's how it used to be. And what people are doing now is combining these things. These are a marriage. There's not any one thing for everybody. And with the arts, I'm gonna start crying, because with the arts, it's bringing something together for folks that would be impossible in a therapist chair. And that's the beauty of this, that it encompasses all of that. And the idea of IFS is to unburden the exiles that have to carry all of this weight, to restore self-leadership, so you have this kind of self-to-part relationship, and establish this harmony in a system that has unfortunately it's not in harmony a lot of times with trauma. And it's to restore that. And they just did a beautiful job of it.